You know, technology is a funny thing, folks. You have to unmute yourself. So you all got to hopefully do a little bit of lip reading during that time. I'm fortunate that I have a colleague in the room who has headphones on who's trying to make sure the technology goes the way it should. So I'm glad she was there to catch it because she said, I can't hear you. So I'll start over. Thank you all for being here for Unit 2's kickoff. I'm excited to jump into Unit 2, which is focusing on building processes and structures that support pre-K alignment. We had a lot of great things happen in Unit 1, and I enjoyed everyone's Unit 1 phone calls. And I hope that we can build off of our success and our momentum in Unit 1 to have a successful Unit 2. In the room today with me, I have Whitney Wallace, who's also part of the early childhood team. She will be monitoring the chat and questions box. So if you have technology issues or questions about content, please feel free to use your control panel and locate the questions or the chat box, and she'll be happy to respond. I also want to take a moment, if everyone will look in their control panel, there's a few handouts in there for today's webinar. The one that we will be using during the webinar is the walkthrough form, and it should be the first handout there. It's labeled Admin Peer Walkthrough Alignment. And if you can pull that up, it'd be really great if you could print it out, but I know we're getting started, so that may not be possible. So now we're going to get started with today's webinar. Okay. So Unit 2 is on building processes and structures to support alignment. Here's the agenda for the day. We're going to ground ourselves in best practice. Then we're going to talk about establishing common visions and values. Then we're going to name a few processes and structures that you can use to support alignment. We're going to talk about capacity building and then bringing it all together and closing with some next steps. So as we think about grounding ourselves in best practice, there's a few essential documents that we want to look at to make sure that the work we're doing around processes and structures to support alignment are rooted in what is known as best practice. The first of those documents is NAYC's Developmentally Appropriate Practice position statement. And within that statement, there's a section on teachers as decision makers. Teachers have an important role in their work as decision makers, and they're often the individual that is best equipped to make decisions about children because they are positioned in a way that allows them to know most about the children in their classrooms. But we also know that teachers need ongoing professional development to help support their decision-making abilities, and they need regular opportunities to work collaboratively with one another. This is really to help them be better decision makers so that way they can scaffold instruction appropriately according to the needs of students in their classrooms, work with families as they need to support children's development and learning, and also it increases their decision making abilities around securing outside help if that's what's needed to best support the children in their classrooms. Hopefully many of you have had a chance to visit and review our early childhood program self-assessment for pre-K and kindergarten. These tools came out at the beginning of October. And one of the components that is in the rubrics is around curriculum, and one of the specific strategies is vertical alignment. So here on the screen, you can see a snippet of that rubric that shows what vertical alignment should look like across pre-K and kindergarten. There's 3 levels of developing, proficient, and exemplary. We want to make sure that we are utilizing joint planning meetings across grade levels to really support that vertical alignment. Ideally, there's at least 3 joint planning meetings annually. Now, that's a big number, and hopefully today's webinar will help you work through what that might look like and provide you some structure around that. Establishing a common vision and common values is essential for successful alignment. We're going to do a quick activity right now. If everyone can go to slide.do and enter the code R404. I want us to answer the question, what is student progress monitoring? I promise this all has a rhyme and a reason. So I'm going to pull up my Slido here. So you'll use the code. Let's see. There we go. So if you will join at slido.com and enter the code #R404. And then the question I want you to answer is, what is student progress monitoring? So we have one person who's typed in, using student data to elevate teacher instruction. Let's see what else we got out there. Let's see if I can refresh it. See if that will give us some other people's answers. There we go. So here we go, we got a good number. So using student data to elevate teacher instruction, collecting data to inform student progress, quantifying student rate of growth, a thermometer of student learning, and efficacy of instruction. It's the gathering of information based on a specific standard or strand of the standard that guides further instruction or intervention, using assessment results to drive instruction, remediation of skills, ongoing assessment to determine student growth and areas of weakness, ongoing data to evaluate and determine student progress, collection of data to show where students are at in their learning. So you can see from that there is a good number of thoughts around student progress monitoring. Not one person said the exact same thing. And that brings me to the point that we really have to take time as we're working through vertical alignment to stop and talk about common language. Our pre-K teachers and our kindergarten teachers might use similar terms and phrases, but they may not be meaning the same exact thing. Often there is some shared understanding between our pre-K and our kinder teachers, but often there are slight differences that then translate into differences of philosophy, difference in instruction. So we want to make sure that we, as we work through vertical alignment, that we take time to build common language. And this is going to require a culture of collaboration. As you think about your campus culture, Is collaboration one of the values at the center of your campus? How is this observed during classroom times? How is it observed in staff meetings? How is it observed as teachers just interact with one another in PLCs or even in the teacher lounge or the workroom? Alignment can't be achieved by one individual. It takes a whole team. And that brings us to distribution of leadership. While a principal or a district administrator might be leading the work, they are not the sole leader of the work. It requires teachers, coaches, families to all take part of being a leader in ensuring that alignment is present between pre-K and kindergarten. Lastly, there has to be a common commitment to understanding child development. The more we understand how children develop, the easier it is to make decisions because it's no longer being based off of opinion, but it's being based off of developmental science. This helps alleviate tension when there is differences in opinion because you have something you can go back to. And it also alleviates someone as being the holder of all of the knowledge, because there's a whole field of knowledge in the field of child development that you can lean on. So let's jump into some of the processes and structures that can support alignment. There are three main processes and structures that support alignment. They include alignment meetings, administrator and peer walkthroughs, and professional development. Many of these things might be occurring already within campuses on your district, and so you have a foundation to build on. There are two different kinds of alignment meetings. Most often we see horizontal alignment meetings. These are meetings that occur across one grade level and are focused on ensuring alignment between classrooms. They're ideally driven by data and are more common than vertical alignment meetings. We often have these built into our calendars on our campuses, that every Tuesday after school, each grade level is going to meet for common planning. Or you might have be a district that utilizes a late start Wednesday to have monthly PLCs that include just teachers of one grade level. These are essential for ensuring quality instruction within a grade level. We want to complement them though with vertical alignment meetings. These meetings happen between staff on different grade levels. For the purposes of our support network, we're going to look at vertical alignment between pre-K and kindergarten staff. And it's ensuring that there's alignment across those grade levels. It is also ideally driven by data collected during walkthroughs and peer observations. Alignment meetings are very different from, vertical alignment meetings are very different from those horizontal alignment meetings. Our horizontal alignment meetings typically are going to focus on planning specific instruction, whether that's coming together to writing lesson plans, or it's going to look at analyzing data on a specific assessment instrument, or creating a common assessment that'll be utilized within that grade level. When we're looking at vertical alignment meetings, there's a few things that we want to do. First, you want to choose a topic, and you want to be as specific as possible. A topic might be a specific skill within a content area. So for pre-KK, we might look at subitizing. That's a skill that we'd want to see in both pre-K and kindergarten. But we don't have to limit our vertical alignment meetings to talk just about instruction in a specific content area. We can also look at things like supporting students' social and emotional development. We can look at family engagement practices. We can look at classroom management or how classroom layouts are established. When conducting these vertical alignment meetings, it's good to use agreed upon norms. Here are a few that we suggest. They include agreeing to work collaboratively, distributing leadership, building common language, striving to increase your knowledge of child development and learning, and focusing on what should be rather than what is. That last one is very important when we're thinking about vertical alignment. Vertical alignment is not deciding, does our pre-K have it better or does our kinder have it better? And going with which grade level you think has it down pat already. It's really about everyone taking a step back and not basing what they think should happen on what they're currently doing, but basing what they think should happen based off of what child development and learning tells us. So here's a proposed structure, and one of your handouts is a vertical alignment meeting agenda. And rather than giving you a very specific agenda, we kind of map out what you would do at these different times. And so the agenda handout that we have is more or less kind of a template and a guide to establishing a vertical alignment meeting agenda. So we encourage you to start with a time of exploration. Use developmentally appropriate practice or other resources to explore what is considered best practice. Then as a group, create a shared definition of what is considered best practice. So if you're looking at something like small group instruction, you might come together, read a few articles, find a TED Talk or a YouTube video, and then decide as a group, what do we collectively define as best practice around small group instruction? After you have that set definition that's been jointly agreed upon by pre-K and kindergarten staff, you then want to figure out, how do we differentiate this between pre-K and kindergarten? Does it need to be differentiated? Sometimes it should look exactly the same in both grade levels. Sometimes we'll choose to look at a vertical alignment document that includes both the pre-K and kindergarten standards to see, is there kind of a continuum of how that skill progresses, and then drawing some distinct lines about what will be considered most appropriate for pre-K and what is most appropriate for kindergarten. Lastly, you'll want to spend some time identifying resources that everyone can access that will support their implementation. Ideally, these are some web-based resources or are resources that you might have in your campus's professional development library. The next thing we're going to talk about is walkthroughs. Walkthroughs are essential for vertical alignment. And while we utilize administrator walkthroughs often, we want to make sure that we're including peer walkthroughs as part of the vertical alignment process. So one of the handouts that we have is a process on how to create a walkthrough form. Knowing that we want to work collaboratively and also distribute the leadership, we encourage you not to just establish a walkthrough form as administrators for the purposes of alignment. You might use an established walkthrough form for something like teacher evaluations or for some of your other district decided initiatives. But for the purposes of vertical alignment, we want to make sure that administrators and teachers are working together to build a walkthrough form. So similarly to the vertical alignment meetings, you want to choose one area of focus. And then you're going to narrow down to specific look-fors. So let's say that your area of focus is on community building or classroom community. You would then decide, what are the specific look-fors that we hope to see in both pre-K and kindergarten classrooms that are going to help support classroom community. Next, you'll want to develop some reflective questions. So that way the observer can use this opportunity as a professional development opportunity. You'll then want to come together to decide what are our goals. So you'll establish kind of a walkthrough period. So maybe it's a month of time, and you'll decide what do we hope in this month to see. And with that, you'll establish that observation window, and you'll make time for both administrator and peer walkthroughs. And they will be looking for the specific look-fors, and then you'll come back together to analyze the data. Administrator walkthroughs provide an opportunity for administrators to look at campus-wide trends and sometimes district-wide trends. Walkthroughs should focus on one main skill with no more than 5 look-fors, and the skill should be consistent between classrooms. The key component is analysis of alignment between classrooms and grade levels, so looking at both horizontal and vertical alignment. And then the administrator can use the results to drive professional development and alignment meetings. Peer walkthroughs provide teachers the opportunity to analyze their own practice. And that's where those reflective questions will come into play. It should also focus on one skill. And the key component is reflection on one's own practice after observing someone else's. And results can be used to drive vertical team meetings. So we're going to pull up the walkthrough template. This can be found in your handout section under your control panel. And so I believe you can see mine here on the screen. We have that process that I went through here kind of detailed out. And on the second page, we have an example of a walkthrough form. And this is looking at the focus area of classroom community. You can see there that we have a few different look-fors, but we're not putting more than 5 look-fors. If teacher sets clear and reasonable limits on children's behavior and applies those limits consistently, children hear and see their home language and culture reflected in the daily interactions and activities of the classroom. There's opportunities to play together, collaborate on projects, and time to talk to peers. Teacher listens to and acknowledges children's feelings, and teacher demonstrates self-regulation in his or her interaction with children. We actually pulled these straight from the developmentally appropriate practice position statement. Under the guidelines for teaching and learning, there is an area that's focused on classroom community. And these are some specific items under that guideline. So that's another good place to pull look-throughs for, is looking at some of those resources to just ground your look-fors in best practice. You can see we then have our reflective questions of how do the children feel in this classroom, and what evidence is there that each member of the community is valued by others. These are pretty broad and broad questions that offer a lot of opportunity for reflection by the observer. So I'm going to pull up a video, and we're going to watch about a 2-minute video of a teacher who is doing a rhyming lesson with her kindergarten classroom. And as we watch this video, I want you to think about these look-fors.
Okay, boys and girls, look at Miss Allen. Turn your body this way. Body? Let me see everybody's bodies this way. Eyes this way. Excellent. All right, boys and girls, we're going to be working on our rhyming. So let's pull out our chart here. And let's focus on our job today. So our job today is, what's this word? I hear words that rhyme. Okay, our other job today, we have two jobs. Our other job is that words have patterns. Those are two things we're going to be focusing on today, okay? Who can remind me what is a rhyming word? McKenna. No sentence. Let's see if Hopper can help you. What? Good. I like that you added the end on there. Words that sound the same at the end, okay? At the end, okay? So let's look at our chart here, friends. I have a group of letters here together that make a part of a word. Well, do you know what this says, Kayla? At. Let's look at it together. A-T. At. Now, you know what? What's really cool about at is I can add other letters in front of it to change the word. So what's this letter? M. What does M say? If I put M in front of that.
I'm going to jump ahead a little just so we don't eat up all of our time watching the video.
Do you see a pattern? What am I doing each time? What am I doing each time here? McKenna. Switching what? Not numbers. Letters. We're switching out the letters. Jackson, when I switch out those letters, am I changing the ending sound? No. So that makes the words do what? Rhyme, right? And did I see that all of these words end with the same at? So that's my pattern.
Okay, so let's look here at our look fors. I'm looking at first look for. Teacher sets clear and reasonable limits on children's behavior and applies those limits consistently. I believe we saw that at the beginning when she was talking about what is their two jobs during today's lesson. And she set those limits at the beginning so the students knew what was going to be expected of them throughout the lesson. We look at the children here and see their home language and culture reflected in the daily interactions and activities of the classroom. Some children's home language might be present in this lesson, but there might be other ways to incorporate other languages as well. That can often be difficult with something like rhyming, because rhyming is dependent on language structures. When we look at the next three, we didn't quite see those either. So we could see that this teacher has some room for growth, but you'll notice here at the top, all we have is the date and the grade level. The purpose of vertical alignment walkthroughs is not to call out specific teachers, but it's to look at trends across campuses. When bringing all of this data back to teachers and having them analyze it themselves, it's important that it's not attached to certain classrooms. This provides a level of comfort and allows everyone to engage in that collaborative workflow that we would hope to see. The last process or structure really that you can use to support vertical alignment is professional development. Targeting specific skills or aspects pinpointed in walkthroughs will help drive professional development in targeted and meaningful ways. There's many different formats when it comes to professional development. You can do things like large group PD, you can look at targeted groups based off of needs, you can read articles together, watch webinars, but we'd hope that they are always early childhood specific and grounded in developmentally appropriate practice. As you think about planning professional development, think about opportunities to have multiple grade levels in a room at the same time. Obviously, it might be difficult to think about vertical alignment if we had more than just a handful of grade levels. So if you're looking maybe pre-K, K, and first, maybe go up to second grade, But I wouldn't imagine going beyond 3 or 4 grade levels would be helpful, because then you get too wide of a range of skills and development, and it makes it tricky to support everyone. Building administrators' capacity and the capacity of the campus to support vertical alignment is essential for successful implementation of vertical alignment. Administrators may struggle to find the time to lead professional development, to lead vertical alignment meetings. So they can really lean on and leverage their strong teachers as leaders to lead those meetings, to deliver professional development, and to provide mentoring and coaching to individual teachers. Administrators don't have to be alone in this, and quite frankly, if they are alone in this, then they're not going to be successful in getting vertical alignment to be more present on their campuses. So back in Unit 1, we introduced our theory of change. Unit 1, we really started by looking at administrators' knowledge and decisions around vertical alignment. And today we started to talk about what are some supports that administrators can provide to teachers so that they better can implement developmentally appropriate practice. So if we think about those supports, they're going to, that we talked about, being vertical alignment meetings, admin and peer walkthroughs, and professional development. There has to be some intentional decisions made by administrators to implement those, and implement those in ways that increase teachers' implementation of developmentally appropriate practice. But they can't make those decisions if they themselves don't have a solid understanding of developmentally appropriate practice. So it'll always go back to Unit 1 of increasing administrators' knowledge, so that way they can make better decisions, and that way they can then provide the supports to teachers. So over the course of this unit, I really encourage you to think of your plan to increase vertical alignment between pre-K and kindergarten. And your guiding questions are, how will you implement vertical alignment meetings on campuses? And how can you utilize peer and administrator walkthroughs to increase vertical alignments? So while depending on your role, you may not be able to implement some of this during the unit, think about what can you do in the coming months to host a vertical alignment meeting on a campus, and maybe using that vertical alignment meeting to talk about developing a peer and administrator walkthrough form that focuses on vertical alignment. So 2 weeks from today at 1 o'clock, we'll have our PLC. Our guiding question will be, how can structures and processes help overcome challenges with vertical alignment? And that week and the following week, we will have our one-on-one calls for Unit 2. I believe I moved a few of your calls, and I shouldn't be moving anyone else's calls for Unit 2. There were a few of you who we weren't able to connect during Unit 1, and we'll just make sure to cover both Unit 1 and Unit 2 during your Unit 2 call. As a reminder, I do ask that you call me for those calls, and as I send out the calendar invites, I put my phone number in the location for that meeting. So as we close out today, I just want to encourage you all to make use of the resources that Whitney and I have developed that are in your handout section. I'll also post those on our support network webpage, so that way you can have access to them there. As always, feel free to reach out in between our one-on-one calls if there's any way that I can support you. And I will hang out just for a few minutes. If anyone has a question, you can go ahead and put that in the question box, and Whitney and I will be answering those. Otherwise, have a great day, and I look forward to connecting with you all in 2 weeks as we start our PLCs and one-on-one calls. Have a good one.